All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. Greg LeBuff here with you. Got Dustin Dodory, Brad Vandalite. So listen, tonight's episode, I titled this, You Can't Think Your Way Out. And there's going to be a lot of value packed into this. So hopefully we're trying to pack a lot of value into every single episode. But what I mean by this, there's a couple different ways we can go when I say you can't think your way out of it. People often want to think their way out of violence. And I'm actually not specifically talking about when they're actually involved in a confrontation, in a violent assault. I actually want to pull back from that, and I want to talk about before the violent assault ever happens, and I want to talk about what I see as some of the single greatest barriers that people kind of run into prior to beginning training, or even at the beginning of their training, the onset of their training. There's a kind of a dangerous paradigm that people have, and it's connected to the way that they're thinking and the very fact that they are trying to think their way through this. And I want you to understand something. You cannot think your way through violence. And again, I'm not talking about in the moment of violence, because that does apply there too. You don't want to think, you want to be trained, stimulus response, it wants to be visceral, automated, all that type of stuff, right? The flow state. That's not what I'm talking about. So I want to break this down. I want to go deep. This is something everybody wants to hear, because the mind has to always precede the body. Right? The mind always has to precede the body. You start by training, you make great warriors by training from the inside out. Okay? Not training them physically first, but you train the mind first, the body follows. There is an order to this, and you cannot think your way out of violence. So listen, stick with us. We're going to cut to the intro. We're going to come back, and we're going to break this down in a few seconds. Every day, my new mission is to create and train a group of men that believe in the right. I'm Greg LeBuff. Welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. All right. Okay. We had a couple technical glitches during the intro, but we'll just pick it up from here. So listen, tonight I titled this, You Can't Think Your Way Out. And I just before we cut to the intro, I was talking about, I don't actually want to talk about the role that thinking plays in a violent assault. I actually want to come back off that, and I want to talk about what I see as some of the major hurdles that prevent people from even ever getting into training, or it really is an albatross that they carry at the onset of their training, and it can take people some months sometimes to get through this. Okay, so and I'm sure at some point in the conversation we may reference how thinking affects your combat performance, but that's not where I want to start. So I want to start a couple things. One, we don't know what we don't know. And I know everybody's heard that saying, but you got to really stop sometimes and understand that we don't know what we don't know. And it's tough for people, especially men, I think, that to recognize and accept the fact that we just don't, there's things we just don't know about. I can think of, literally dozens of subject matters that I have zero fucking clue about. Right? The deepest I understand them is an awareness that they exist. Do you know what I mean? I know that this element or this industry or this thing exists, but I really don't know anything else about it, and I don't really give two shits to care to know about it. And I think this is an important point, because it's gonna tie into how I break this down. So we don't know what we don't know. When it comes to violence, actually, maybe I'll just set it up this way. When people have a problem, okay, people want to believe that they can literally think a solution into existence. Okay, so what I mean by that is that they want to understand. So they want somebody to explain something to them, or they, type it into Google, they do a Google search, whatever it is. They are looking for a solution. But here's often the problem with this. Solutions, now this is industry specific, so I have to talk specifically to violence. The solution to violence, you cannot actually understand what the solution is. You can't think your way through the solution, because the reality is you absolutely have no fucking reference for what the solutions are. Okay, so what has to happen when it comes to something like violence, the best bet that you have is you have to understand the problem. And everybody can understand the problem. Not everybody does understand the problem, but everybody can understand the problem. And here's my reasoning behind this. every single person that comes to us, they're always asking me and wanting me to tell them what I do. They want me to give them the solution. They want me to break down the solution. They want me to explain the solution. And I continuously tell them I can't do that. And so I re-divert them and I start to explain the problem to them. And then they keep coming back and saying, okay, but how do you solve this? How do you solve this? How do you solve this? You cannot fucking think your way through this. You can't explain a solution to somebody. Because what happens is a solution when it comes to something like violence is not singularly an intellectual concept, right? It is an alchemy. It is a process that you have to go through, which then creates a change inside of you. It changes your perception. It changes your beliefs. It changes your skill set. It changes your knowledge. It changes literally everything about you. And so it's like people are always going, explain to me the destination. And they think that the destination can be explained to them without ever having to take the journey. And it's like, no matter what, a destination can only be explained in a very, very limited capacity without experiencing the journey. The journey is what reveals the true destination. Let me just try to give you a simple analogy. How many times have we done something in our life where somebody says, hey, let's do this. Hey, look at that bathroom in our house. Let's fucking redo that. Wouldn't it be amazing? Look at pictures of brand new bathrooms. Hey, we could put in that sink and that tub and that faucet and that tile. Oh my God, that's going to be so beautiful, and we'll blow out that wall and do that. Oh, it's also fucking simple. And then you start the journey. And it is never what you think it is. It is not as easy as just putting in a fucking tub and putting in a fucking new tile and doing all this shit. There's always challenges. There's far more work. Anyone ever said to yourself, I mean, if I would have known how much work that was going to be, I never would have fucking started this. I never would have done this. I mean, that's what most things in life are. You say, I want to go to school. I want to become this or I want to become that. Most people don't understand what that journey is going to be like. Now, yes, there are some things that, and this will be the next part of my definition. There are some things where we have global references for. If somebody says, like, I want to be a mechanic, okay? So that's your end destination. I want to be a mechanic. So somebody can explain to you, well, what type of mechanic? Well, I'd like to be a heavy duty mechanic. I'd like to work, small engine repair mechanic. I'd like to be whatever it is. You can actually really understand the destination that you're going for. Because why? We all have references. We've all typically used a lawnmower or seen a lawnmower. We understand what small engines are, what they look like. Might not fully understand how they work for everybody, but you get it. Most people have driven cars or say big trucks. Like you have a reference of experience to understand that destination. Okay, does that make sense so far? But if we go backwards, right, and you can understand the problem. You say, why do you have the desire to be a mechanic? Because shit breaks. You have an interest in cars and tinkering and things. You like taking things apart, all that type of stuff. But the thing is, you go, well, yeah, everyone's going to need mechanics. Why? Because shit breaks down all the fucking time. Like, you own the problem. Like, I've had a car breakdown. So if I've had that problem, I now have an incentive to learn a skill set to solve my problem. Okay, hopefully this is making sense. But when it comes to violence, here's what it is. People can't understand solutions because if you say to somebody, but tell me what you do. Well, we do Trojan horses and smash and grabs and avalanche strategies. And you can 3-to-1 people and reference people. And people are like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Well, of course you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. You have no reference for a fucking solution. So how can I explain to you what a smash and grab is or what a fucking, whatever it is, Alavanca is or whatever, any strategy that we use, a flashbang strategy. How can I explain to you what that is when you have no fucking reference for any of that stuff? Right? But what I can explain to you is the problem. Because what is everyone going to have a reference point for? The problem. If you have, there's never been somebody come to me who has expressed an interest in training, who wants to know more about what we do, that doesn't understand the problem. And what's the proof of that? Why would they come to me if there was no problem? Nobody that has no problem with violence, has no fear of violence, no worries about violence, no worries about needing to protect, has ever sought out a combat educator to teach them how to solve a problem that is non-existent in their world. That just goes, I don't even know what you're talking about. That problem is non-existent to me. So everybody that is going to find something, right? Your car breaks down, you search out for a mechanic. When's the last time your cars were running perfectly and you went and looked for a mechanic? Like, you don't, unless you're like, well, I got to do some maintenance so that my car doesn't break down. Okay, well, that's a problem, isn't it? So you're always seeking, the only reason you seek out a solution is for the problem. So when it comes to violence, what stops a lot of people is they don't know the solutions and they can't understand what you're talking about. You may as well be speaking Russian to someone who only speaks English. And so that prevents them from either A, starting training, because they go, well, I just don't get this. Of course you don't fucking get it, but you do understand the problem, right? You do have a reference point of understanding the problem. You see, when you have reference points, meaning look at an assault, look at a home invasion. Like you can look at that and go, geez, what happened to these people? Well, geez, what if that was me? That's a real fucking problem. You can understand that violent criminals tend to operate in packs. They tend to arm themselves. They tend to do unfair, dirty things and take advantage of good people because they're not looking for a fight. They're looking to destroy people. Like, you can understand all that, right? You can just look around and you can get a reference point of that. So everybody understands the problem if they want to, and if they don't, or that's not a problem for them, that's fine. But if you understand the problem, then what happens, you say, well, I would like a solution, but you have to understand that you can't think your way to a solution. But people really want, and they do believe, that you should be able to explain to them the solution, because their hope is that the second you articulate it to them, they can literally, I understand, right? I have to think, I hear what you're saying, I'm thinking about this, I now understand that I now own the solution. And unfortunately, when it comes to violence, that's just not true. There's a lot of people I know that understand how engines work in cars, from crankshafts and camshafts and pistons and push rods and, all of the timing belts, and they understand all of that, yet they can't fucking fix it. Understanding it, you can't go, well, I understand how a car works, therefore I can fix it. Nah, there's two different fucking things, right? And when it comes to violence, it's such a specific thing that people they've never even heard. Like, most people, car savvy or not, have heard of a crankshaft or a camshaft or a timing belt or a power steering pump, but they've heard of it. But they haven't heard of the strategies and the tactics of unconventional warfare. Because who taught you that? I don't remember that being offered in high school. I mean, I did take automotives. I remember that being offered, but I don't remember guerrilla warfare 101. You know what I mean? So I don't know if you guys get where I'm coming at with this. I'm sure you do, but you guys have been around long enough that, to see this problem in people, and again, people that are trying to think their way through something, and maybe for you guys, if you can reach back, I mean, you guys have been training for a long time, a lot of years, but if you can reach back to a point in time when you go, listen, I knew, obviously you understood the problem, but do you remember what it was like to not understand the solution? You might understand what somebody's talking about in terms of like why we need to do something a certain way, but you go, but I don't know what you're talking about. And so there's a very important piece that people need. And that's the piece that I want to drive towards. But before I talk about that piece specifically, I want you guys to see if you guys got any feedback on what I'm saying so far.
Yeah, like I'll just talk about, the beginning part of my journey, in weaponizing, going back 25 years. Earlier tonight you mentioned, perception shifts and stuff like that. And for me, my first big perception shift I ever had was when I came to see the demo, right? Like, I had no idea who you were, what you did. I came out to see a demo based off a poster. I didn't know what I was walking into. And I have a traditional martial arts background, and that's what I was doing at the time. And in that demo, like, all the things you were saying, talking about, I mean, my head like exploded, because I was just like, oh my God, like, here I am with a black belt thinking I have all the solutions I'm ever going to need. And your ability at that time to explain to everyone in the room what the problem of violence was why I had such an epiphany, because I was like, oh my God, like, my solution doesn't make any sense, because it doesn't fit the problem he just painted for me so vividly. And I was like, well, this doesn't work. Like
Yeah.
everything I've ever thought, I'm like, this isn't going to work. The solution's garbage.
Hmm.
And it's because I didn't understand the problem that violence really was. I had my own perception of what the problem was, but it wasn't violence. You know what I mean? And coming from martial arts, of course, it was a mix of martial arts and what I saw in Hollywood movies and
Yeah.
TV and all that, all the paradigms you would get raised with, school, parents, all that shit, right?
Yeah.
So for me, just that perception shift alone was a massive kind of example of what you're talking about. And then it went on from there too, like as we went further into our training, and our training methods also evolved. You know, we, like you said, me and Brad have been around for like 25 years, so there's been a lot of evolutions. And when I look back at the different ones, we can get into them if we need to, but again, there was always a big perception shift, and it was always because there was a different way to access a deeper level of understanding of the problem. You know, like scenarios was another really big one. You know, I started training in 99. I think it was 2001 we started doing the force on force scenario training. And again, it was like just a much better way to understand what violence really is, because now you were actually getting to kind of experience it, you know, on a certain level. And that just ups the game again, because now the solution makes way more sense because the problem makes way more sense.
Yeah.
So,
So just before Brad, you jump in, I want to just rewind a tiny bit, Dustin, because and I'm going to paraphrase this so you can correct me if I miss anything on it. But when you come to like the demo and you have a perception of what you think the problem is, then you're seeing somebody present the problem in from a different angle, which is again, martial arts wasn't training you for violence; it was training you for that martial art, but and maybe with an aspect of self defense, right? With the thought that you're learning to defend
yeah,
yourself.
some claims to it,
Some
sure.
claims to it is a good word. Then you see something where somebody's just going, okay, let's just examine the problem, not selling an art, not talking about the solutions, not saying, here's what I do, here's what I do, here's how I can fix your life and fix these problems. Saying, let's sit down, let me show you the problem. You guys are smart. You live in this world. You can read the newspaper, and you have friends and families that have experienced violence. Am I right or am I full of shit? You can't you can't bluff people. You can't fake the problem. I'm not saying you can't fake a problem. You can create a problem in the world that nobody has ever seen before, and then you can create it and go, my God, this is a problem. And someone else goes, is it? Is it? And then all of a sudden people start seeing that problem everywhere. I mean, that's the whole concept behind fake fucking news and everything else that goes on. Just create a fucking problem. I mean, just literally post something. If people see it on some sort of a device or on some sort of social media, it's fucking obviously true. And so now you're creating a problem. What I'm talking about is talk about a problem that everybody knows is in fact a fucking problem that you have experienced. Well, people should not be able to lie to you about what the problem is when you or people you know or people very close to you have experienced this problem. It means you have real world experience, real world knowledge. So people can't lie to you when you have real world experience. Like they just can't fucking lie to you. Okay? Or at least they shouldn't fucking be able to. I mean, a lot of people, they still can be lied to. But most common sense people can go, okay, this is the problem. So when you're looking at something like violence, somebody either understands the problem or somebody is painting the problem with their bias. Wouldn't it be great if the problem was red? Because the art that I so happen to be teaching and offering, the product I'm selling, solves red. If the violence is in fact blue, well, my product doesn't work so well for blue. But that's so rare. But let's look at the problem through my eyes, and the problem is red. And then you have somebody that goes, well, I know this is a real world problem, but I don't really know that much about it. I'm just scared of it. So if you tell me the problem's red, the fucking problem's red, the solution's red, fuck, let's go with red. And that's the problem. Because you can't own the solution. You can only understand the problem. So you have to get the guy. So I don't want to get off that. When you see the demo and that you go, oh, fuck, this is a different problem. I have no solutions for this problem. In that moment, you made a decision, a radical decision, although the correct decision, to quit what you were doing, and make a change. But in that moment, did you understand the solutions that were being presented
No,
to you?
No,
Exactly.
not in that moment. Not
Okay,
at all.
not in
Not
that
even a
moment.
little bit. Not at all.
Not at all.
That
Not
that's
even a
where
little
that's
bit.
where that's where the faith comes in. We've talked lots about faith in these
That's
lectures,
the
and it's
word.
like
That's what I want to hit on.
your
Yes.
yeah, your ability to help me understand the problem that night was just like so revealing that it was like, I don't know what it is. I don't need to know what it is. I just know this is where I got to go to get it.
Okay. So that's the part I want to break down. Then we're going to let Brad jump in on this too, obviously, because what I want people to understand is when I first met Paul, when I first met my mentor, I had the problem. I was almost murdered, all that type of stuff. I'd done martial arts, done this. I knew these things didn't work. I now, the problem, the realities of the problem was almost killed me because I didn't understand the problem. And discovering seeing the elephant, as they say, almost killed me. And then when I met Paul, he didn't offer a single fucking solution, right? Yet this guy was at the time contracted and was the hand-to-hand combat instructor for the U.S. Navy SEAL teams. Never once mentioned that. Never once offered a solution. Never once talked about what he could do. Never once, anything like that. The only thing that he did was he talked about the problem in such detail, with such clarity and such realism, that literally everything that I'd experienced in my near death violent assault, it was as if he was, I just knew he'd experienced it. It was as if he was standing there. Everything I felt, everything that, I mean, from physical to mental to emotional, before, during, and even after what I was going through, he articulated the problem with such clarity and such accuracy. I mean, that it was literally like Robin Hood shooting an arrow into the bullseye and then four more directly on top of it, like just splitting each arrow. And for me, that's where my faith started. And some would say, well, that's a blind faith. Because just because somebody understands the problem doesn't mean they actually own the best solution. But it's been my experience in life that when you find someone, when you have a problem, and you find somebody who understands the problem with that type of crystal clarity and precision and understanding and has the ability to articulate that without a bias, just see it for what it fucking actually is, that person will own the solution, and they will own the very best fucking solution because they're not painting the problem their color, if that makes sense. So I just wanted people off your story, and then Brad's going to share his, that you came, well, it starts with me. I came to a spot where that gave me the faith. You had a moment where someone explaining the problem with that clarity gave you the faith, the blind faith. And then we'll let Brad tell his part of it, and then we'll move forward from there of where this process goes. But that's where we both had to come to. Brad.
Yeah, obviously that was part of my journey as well, right? Having that moment of faith in terms of my discovery of weaponizing. I didn't have a background, right? So if I look back and if I reflect on kind of my starting point, I never trained a day in my life with anything, and what I believed to be the problem when I thought that I was addressing the problem, like I thought it was a fight, but that was my level of understanding at a 20-year-old, you know what I mean? So it's like, that's kind of what I believed it to be. And then when I discovered and I went and I started seeing what was out there, I knew that other solutions, I'm like, well, that's not a fight, that's a sport. So I'm like, I don't know if that's what I'm into. Then I found weaponizing, and I was like, oh, they're talking about something completely different. Again, talking about the problem, which actually opened up my eyes to, yeah. And I think what it was the thing is, like, I had this idea of what the problem was. And then I come and I learn and I hear, oh, fuck. Okay, what I thought the problem was so low level compared to what the problem actually is, and opened up my eyes to like that discovery and that aha moment of like, oh, like, dude, you're not even on the mark for what you're actually after. And then I was like, yes, this is what I want, and this makes sense to me because of like what I now believe the problem to be. right? So, and then for me, like it was that moment. I'm like, that makes sense to me. It makes sense because they're addressing that problem. And like just to touch on the one thing that you said earlier about the red and the blue and the greens, and it's like nobody's, like you cannot force a solution onto a problem. Like it's like here's the problem. It's like I'm going to take this. This is a solution for something else, but I'm going to force it and ram it down this problem's throat. And it's like that doesn't really work. And and I say that this is one of the things that I say a ton, and it's about being proud, and it's about the pride that I have for the type of weaponizing and training that we do, is because we are so focused on the problem that should that problem grow and evolve and mutate, something that we were a solution, we'll say that we were using for a particular problem, right? If that is no longer the solution to that problem, or a better solution comes along, or the problem shifts and mutates a bit that it needs that, we say, fuck that solution. Here is the best way to serve that problem now, right? Because it's focused on that. It's not focused on, no, but how do I make my solution work for that now that it's changed? That's a backwards way of thinking. And it was one of the things from that experience 25 years ago, being so problem-based, you knew that whatever the solution was that you were going to learn was for the specific problem that you were just been enlightened to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So see, all three of us have had to come into this by first understanding the only thing that we could understand and having a reference point for, which was the problem. Because again, you didn't have to, as your instructor, you guys didn't have to trust me. You live in this world. So you're like, either you're going to tell I'm full of shit or I'm not. Brad, you were like, listen, I was actually, the problem I was looking to solve was more on the lines of just what happens if I get in a fight as a young man, which young men get in fights. Then you hear it and it was like, oh yeah, okay, so fights are in fact a problem, but I never even thought about fucking violence assaults, which I didn't either, because I also was doing, before this Thai boxing, kickboxing, karate, martial arts, all that, you know what I mean? Because in case, if someone attacks me, I'm in a fight. I'm not looking to fight, but you get what I mean? So all of a sudden and I realized there was a more severe problem once I started having 3 guys, then 8 guys bounce my head off the sidewalk and fucking smash them with bottles. You know what I mean? So I like your way better, figuring out that there's a bigger problem. But so it gets to this thing where we go, okay, here's the problem. Somebody understands this problem with clarity. I agree. This is a problem. I'm with you, dude. I don't like this problem. I don't want to encounter this problem. I don't want to fucking have this problem. So all of a sudden, there becomes this level of blind faith. If you want a solution to it. But what my question is moving forward on this is because blind faith is what gets somebody started, but it's not what keeps people coming. Right? It won't sustain you on your journey. And there's a couple inherent problems, and this is the real wall or the hurdle that I see people run into all the fucking time. And when I was really reflecting on this, I know upon reflection what I did to remove this barrier. And I know that you've done it, Dustin, and I know that you had to do it, Brad, and everybody that has ever gone anywhere in this training really got into this training and to the point where you're, at a very, very high level, has done the same exact thing. And yet it's something that's not often talked about, but it is something that everybody does. So you're in this blind faith. And then what happens is you go, okay, that blind faith is just enough credit to go to the next step and show up again and go, okay, what do we do? And then that person starts talking. But here's the powerful thing. The how you solve a problem, the how, is again, there is no reference to this. You don't know what you don't know. So you have to just start at a point of reference. It's like literally a breadcrumb. It's a piece of a 1,000-piece puzzle. Well, bigger than that, but you get what I mean. And so someone takes their first piece and they're going, this doesn't make sense to me. What's this puzzle about even? I know what we're trying to solve, but I don't know what this looks like. Well, how could you? You've gotten one out of 5,000 pieces of a fucking puzzle. So no, you're not going to be able to see the picture. We have to build the frame out and then start filling in the inside, but you will soon enough start getting a sense of what the big picture is. But that's the alchemy. That's the process. And here's where people hit a fucking hurdle. They go, oh yeah, this guy, he really understands the problem. That's the same problem that I want to solve. He understands it. I really believe this guy has a solution to this, right? So let's go. Let's start this. And then you start saying, okay, here's where we're going to start. Here's your first puzzle piece. And guess what? It is not the piece that you thought it would be or that you think it should be. Because you have a bias, because you think because you understand the problem, you think you have some reference for the solution. You know what I mean? It's like a guy joins the military and he's like, I know what the problem is. I know why I joined the military. And they say, okay, today we're going to start showing you how to serve, or let's say the law enforcement. We're going to start showing you how to serve high-risk warrants. Okay? And then you say, okay, we're going to show you a pincer technique, a pincer maneuver. And then first step, you stand here. You're facing this way. This guy's standing here. Wait a minute. Why am I standing here? Shouldn't I be standing over here? Why wouldn't I just do this? Oh, I'm sorry. How much experience do you have in this? No, none. No, not even, I've never seen it the day before. Well, then why the fuck are you asking me if you should be standing here? Yeah, but if I'm standing here, wouldn't they just see me from here? Jesus Christ, man, we just fucking started. There's way more to this than what has come out of my mouth so far. Oh, no, I'm just saying, like, it just doesn't seem to make sense to me. Oh, now we're having a fucking debate about this? Like, what the fuck, man? Well, I'm just saying. But you have no experience, right? No, none whatsoever. Okay, so you just stand here. Okay, I'm just going to stand here. Although I think it'd be better if I stood over there. But that's it. I won't say no more. It's like, holy fucking Christ, man. Stop. And here's how I did this. I admitted I didn't know a fucking goddamn thing. You know why it was easy for me? Because I did karate, a street-based karate, and you get to your black belt and all that. You get to your high level. You do the tournaments. You win some trophies. You're like, yeah, I'm pretty much a badass. Then you see Thai boxing, kickboxing, and you go, holy fuck, those guys are killers. So you start doing that, and you train with those guys, and train with the pro fighters and all that fun stuff. And then you start going, yeah, pretty fucking good like that. And then you almost get murdered and don't get off a single punch, a single kick. You do none of it works. You can't do any of it. Well, that kind of tells you that you don't know what the fuck you're doing. At all. Then, and it reveals, I didn't even really understand the problem. I didn't even know this world existed. I was living in lollipop land. I had no idea these types of violent individuals existed. Then you meet someone who understands the problem in a way that you're just like, in the first 15 minutes, I can tell you have forgotten more about violence than I'll ever know. And then the second that they are generous enough to start saying, I'm going to show you, I'm going to train you, you question them. Where does that come from? Because you're trying to think your way out of this whole fucking thing. You're constantly trying to think your way out of something instead of just going, I don't have a fucking clue what I'm doing. And so what I did was just realized and accepted, I don't know a fucking thing, and then you become a sponge. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do, and for how long do you want me to do it? That's what you fucking do. Now I'm gonna use an example. Look at a young Mike Tyson. And he meets who? Who changes his life? Cus D'Amato. And what did he do? Whatever the fuck that man told him to do. Why? Because he just knew, he recognized, he knew there was something special about Cus D'Amato, and Cus D'Amato knew there was something special about Mike. And that relationship of trust started from blind faith. Started from one guy having a belief in another guy and then looking and going, well, this is Cus D'Amato, world famous boxing, you know what I mean? And just trusting him, a young kid who needed a father figure. And their lives intersected, and look what happened off that. Do you think Tyson, well, should I really do it this way? I got my own thoughts on the matter. Do you know what I mean? There's no fucking way that went down that way. So for me, that's what it was in my relationship. Was like trust, just absolute blind faith. And as he started to teach me, guess what starts to replace the blind faith is your faith is reinforced with greater understanding because now they've given you more pieces of the puzzle. Most people, again, that start, the first, I don't know, man, the first many, many hours at the beginning of the journey is wasted on trying to convince people or trying to, talk them through their own thoughts when their thoughts don't matter. Do you know what I mean? My thoughts about subjects of which I know absolutely fucking nothing when discussing that topic with experts means nothing. Means nothing. Nobody gives a fuck what you think because it means nothing. And now you can have debates and talk about things and people say this is how you learn is through communication. Listen, when you're training for violence, this isn't a discussion to just, lives are at stake. Like discussions come later when you start having understanding with faith. Now you can have productive conversations. You learn how to ask better questions, and that's what moves you forward. But in the beginning, you can't think your way out of this shit. But people want to think their way out of it. And that is not, in my opinion, not the best way to learn. The best way to learn is to be a fucking sponge in the beginning.
It's a very dangerous spot to start from to have a plan with. Like just because you said Tyson and his quote is like, everybody's got a plan until they get hit with the truth. And it's like, I know it's obviously a little bit of a different context, but it's like if you show up and you're wanting to learn from a specialist and then whatever that field is, if you got a plan, it's like, it's not it doesn't work that way. Like it's inadequate. It's not like you said, you need to be that sponge to access the information that they're saying.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's like, I remember doing things like a single motion, a single thing, and just saying, okay, here's what we're doing. And they watch, go, yep, that's how I want you to do it. And then literally just going, okay, keep going. And then walk away for 3 or 4 hours. And you'd have, if there was other people there with me at that time, people would do it for 4 or 5 minutes and they'd stop and they'd sit down and they'd wait. They'd go, well, we did it. Now we're waiting. And it's like, I learned very early on. It's like, no, he said, go. I didn't hear him say stop. And I'm not stopping because very bad things happen. And it's like, you tell me to do something, I'm just going to do that thing. And always I remember him saying to me, anything I tell you to do is only a suggestion. You don't have to do shit. It's a suggestion. But where you want to go, I have walked that path there, and the people before me have walked that path. We all move a little bit differently to get to get down that path, but I can look back and see where you're at. And he would always say this, everything I tell you to do is a suggestion. If you follow what I'm telling you to do, I can predict very, very accurately where you're going to be in 3 to 6 months. If you don't want to do what I say, that's fine. And I can also predict very, very accurately where you're going to be in 3 to 6 months, and you will not be where you're telling me you want to go. We know the problem. We have our goal is to solve that problem. I know the path. Follow or fuck off. Like it becomes that simple until you get to a point where you can carry your own fucking weight and you no longer need a fucking Sherpa helping you get up to the top. Then you can do whatever the fuck you want to do. And you're going to turn around, you're going to see someone else, you're going to say, listen, I'm going to give you a suggestion. And that person most likely will say, oh, yeah, really? How many times you done this? I've done this 1,000 times. How many times you done this? No, I've never done this. But I'm going to do my way. Awesome. Good luck. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just, that's nature of people sometimes. People I like to learn the hard way. Again, for me, this is all different because this isn't about fixing your car. You got a broken car, I don't give a, if it takes you a year to fix your car, I don't give a fuck. Take the bus for a year. This is about violence. This is about life and death. This is not about earning a black belt or some trophy or whatever the fuck it is. This is about protecting yourself and your family from, violent predatory criminals. When's that assault coming? You need to find somebody that shares the problem, that knows the problem, shares the same problem that you're trying to solve, right? That's been there, done this, has the experience, and you need to shut the fuck up and you need to stop thinking and start listening and just start doing. That's what you need to do. And then at some point, you're going to be smart enough to ask better questions, right? And I'm not saying that you can't ask questions right from the beginning, but asking a question to further or deepen your understanding is different than making statements. Does that make, you know what I mean? Making statements.
Question.
Well, shouldn't I this, or why would I do this? These aren't even questions. Those are statements. Statements of doubt. Statements of like, explain more to me why I'd be doing this. Well, geez, yeah. In lesson 78, it's all revealed, but you're on lesson 1. Why don't I just skip through the fucking 77, next lessons and how? It's an alchemy. It's a process. You got to submit to the process, right?
A question is different than questioning. Right.
100%. Especially when it's a question about what we're doing currently. And then trust that it's leading somewhere. Right? But it's like, but I want to know where it's leading. Yeah. And I'd like to know who's going to win the Super Bowl next year. I got some extra money kicking around. I'd like to make a bet. Like, I don't, like, fuck, man. I don't, like, well, that's not even a good analogy because nobody knows who's going to win it. Whereas this, somebody does know where you're going to be in a year from now, where you're going to be in 5 lessons from now. I know exactly where you're going to be. Well, not anymore because we're wasting all this fucking time with you telling me you think it'd be better if you did this. And I was like, well, then fucking go do that. Like, I don't know what you want me to say to you. Like, you got your own solutions. Why are you here?
I think the harder it is for somebody to get out of their own way, it just shows how much they don't understand that problem.
Yes.
Because if you truly understand violence, like you alluded to it a second ago, you said, this isn't a car. You can afford to have your car not run for a year, whatever. Walk, ride a bike, take a bus. Violence, you don't have a year necessarily. You might have seconds.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you can't afford to be in your own way.
Yeah.
So you better just shut up and listen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the stakes are too high, right? Like you just, yeah.
I think too, like, for looking back to a little bit on, like, having that blind faith, and then what kind of shifted it a little bit for me was having an experience, and there's a lot of different experiences that I believe that we had, but like what I'm kind of driving to is having an experience of, oh fuck, look, almost like, oh fuck, look at me, I just did that worked. You know what I mean? So it's like I've been listening and I've been doing the things that I was told to do, and then put in a situation to continue to grow. It's like, fuck yeah, like you own it, because it's like what you've been doing and what you've been told and what you've been training and developing is like, that's working. It did exactly what he said it was going to do, right? And then it's like, how many of those do you need? Not very fucking many. And it's like, okay, I'll just keep doing whatever he says,
Yeah. Well, and that's the whole thing. Like, here's one of the other dangers of this, right? Is like in the beginning, it's human nature to want to interject your perceptions and thoughts onto something. So again, even if somebody goes, I have no experience in any of this stuff, they still have a perception or an image, a symbolism of what they think it's going to be, what they think they're about to learn to do. And then it's like someone, well, they're going to show me how to punch and kick properly. And then you say, well, no, we don't punch or kick. The fuck do you do here? Like, how the fuck are you going to, like, what is this? How to win a fight without fighting? Like, what if I'm attacked? Yeah, no, I'm going to show you what to do. Yeah, but you don't punch or kick? It's like, fuck. Like, no. Like, you don't need to. What? Like, and it's like, how? And it's like, holy fuck, like, it's going to take, let me just show you. Let me show you. Like, let me just show you. That's why you're here. You committed to it. We own the problem, right? We understand the problem? Okay, then where's the faith? And then when you start it. But here's the other thing. When people start doing something and they go, okay, I'm listening to you, I'm doing it. But the whole time in their minds, they're going, I don't know. I don't know. I've never seen this stuff before. This is not what I thought it would be. Well, guess what? How effective is anything going to be when every fraction of every second that you spend learning, training, practicing, mastering, functionalizing is all equally met with doubt? Your internal dialogue is saying, I don't know. I don't know. I've never seen anything like this on Instagram. I've
You
never
only do
seen
what you-
reels like this. It's like,
You only do what you believe you can do, and you only do what you believe will work.
exactly.
Otherwise, you're wasting your time.
Exactly. And so we're right back to what? If somebody understands the problem, which you can understand yourself, you don't need someone to explain the problem to you. You can do research and reference. You can understand it because it's the problem. It's your problem. It's the world's problem. Like, it's right there. If somebody understands the problem with a clarity and precision and understanding that you go, holy fuck, I didn't even think of it that way, like that. This guy understands nuances within this stuff that I didn't even know existed. You're going then you go, okay, then we're on to something. Then you have to have that trust. You have to have that faith, and you have to just simply work the process because the process works. Like, that's one of our core sayings, work the process because the process works. I know exactly, I mean, we've been doing this for 30 years, but that 30 years of experience in training people and helping people to achieve this is not 30 years because this is not my stuff. This is not just our stuff. That 30 years stands on the shoulders of 50 years before that, which stands on the shoulders of, 100 years of combat blood tested training before. Like, this combative elements of what we're doing, the strategy, tactic, and tools, have been used in warfare and changed and developed and grown into what they are today. And it's been blood tested. It works. You know what I mean? And it continues to evolve and change because the process, elements of it continue to stop working. And they have to be always pushed to remain at the vanguard and to remain cutting edge to continue to work. So that's the process that's ongoing. And so when you find that, you have to submit to that process. You can't think your way out of it because you don't have the perceptual capacity to think because you don't understand. You have no scope of the picture. You're literally standing in the fog of war. Like, you're just, there's a fog of war in actual battle, and then there's the people going, holy fuck, I had a guy breaking in my house last night, 3-armed guys, this, I didn't know what to fucking do. My God, my family was almost murdered. What do I do? Okay. You find people that deal with this type of stuff, specialize in stuff, understand this stuff, and then you submit to that process. Well, how long do you think it'll take me to get... Shut up. Work the process works. Show the fuck up and just put in the work. Train it, practice it. What should I do? Tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. It doesn't take long before you get out of the tell me what to do. Just tell me what you want me to do and I'll fucking do it. It doesn't take long to get out of that to where you don't lean so heavily on your Sherpa. Right? The Sherpa, that's all an instructor is a Sherpa. Right? The Sherpa doesn't take your gear, leave you at base camp and hike your gear up to the top of Everest and go, hey, your gear made it. You still have to walk. I mean, I'm sure there's been Sherpas that literally fucking carry people to the very top. But you know what I mean? At some point, you got to be moving your ass with them, right? So they're taking the heavy load. The better climber you are, the more experienced you are, the less they have to take. Till you get to the point where the Sherpas aren't really helping you at all. Or maybe you don't need them at all. Maybe now you're guiding. You know what I mean? But it's a good analogy for the process. In the beginning, when you don't know anything, you need somebody to just be like, let me tell you what to do here. Where to even set your camp up, what to do. Like, just you need someone guiding you from the beginning. If you can submit, that's the barrier. That's where people fuck up. That's what people have a hard time doing. Just show up and do the work. Right? Don't just, what do you want me to do? Okay. Now let's put a safety catch in there. What if you are 8 months in, a year in, 2 years in, and you realize that either the goals have diverged, so now what you're learning is no longer in line with what your core goal is, or maybe your goal shifted, or your instructor's goal shifted, or maybe you go, yeah, this guy really understood the problem. I really committed to the process, but the deeper I get in the process, the more pieces of the puzzle that they start to put together. This isn't leading anywhere. This is not. He's talking a good game, but his actions don't match the language. Quit. Quit. And people go, oh, I don't want to waste the time. You didn't waste time. You didn't know anything. Now you know something. Course correct. Like
The
when
only
you
waste
don't
of
know.
time would be to continue.
100%. That's when you waste your time. Because well, the guy's really nice and I like him and I like the people there and I get along and I fit in and it's just easier to stay there. And it's like, yeah, you know, I sat on my old deck for a couple of years too and got splinters up my ass every summer before I finally rebuilt it. Like, fine, sit on that deck. Keep, you like splinters up your ass, keep doing it. I don't give a fuck. Or you go, enough's enough and fucking quit and go through the pain and rebuild and do what you want to do. But you're better off. Right? These are the virtues that every fucking buddy espouses to live by. Oh, I'm not afraid of failure. I course correct. Thomas Edison, failed 1,000 times before he invented the light bulb. And he used to say, I didn't fail 1,000 times. I just found out 999 ways to not make a light bulb. You know what I mean? Like, and he actually lived that. People talk like that, but people don't live that. People are they're questioning everything because they don't want to either say, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't want to, I got to preserve some sort of ego, or, they're just terrified of making a mistake and making the wrong decisions. Am I doing the right thing? Will this really work? Could I really do this? Instead of just, again, go, what's the problem? Find someone who understands that problem with the clarity, precision, and accuracy and understanding to the depths that you don't possess, and then commit to the fucking process. And then once you get enough knowledge to actually have an educated eye, if it either you're proven to go, yes, this is awesome. This is exactly what I believed it was. Or go, nope, not what I thought it was, quit. You didn't waste your time. You discovered what it wasn't. You're one step closer to figuring out what it was, what it is you're looking for. Right? So that kind of process, which is, again, easier said than done, which is why most people talk and don't act. They talk but don't do. It's very, very difficult to do that. The last thing I think I actually have to say about this whole thing is, again, the degree to which you understand the problem. When violence almost costs you your life, you will find somebody that understands the problem that you experienced, because nobody can bullshit you when you've experienced it. People can't lie to you about what violence is. Can't unexperience what I've been through. People that have been through violence can't unexperience. You can't lie to these. You can't lie to people like us. You just can't lie. You either know what the fuck it is or you don't. Period. End of story. There is no conning that person. The wool can never be pulled back over. You can't ever go back to sleep again. Okay? So find somebody that understands that, and then if they're offering you a solution, fucking jump in with both feet. Take a big drink of blind faith and start going until they build enough of an educated eye and understanding that now, instead of, you're not questioning, but now you can be part of that process in a more meaningful way, right? That's what people need to do. So it's again, quality of understanding the problem. I've said this all the time. The degree to which somebody understands the problem is the degree to which they can own the solution. That is the hallmark, right? So you can't think your way through this. You can't think your way through that barrier that we're talking about tonight. You have to just have faith and just work the process, because the process works. Okay, I don't know. Any final thoughts for you guys?
I don't think so.
I gotta share an analogy because you guys
course.
love it when I do that.
That's right.
But this is
Plus,
taking
you're
it full
gone next
circle
week,
back
so
to
make a good one.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Just going full circle back to kind of more the beginning of the conversation. One that hit me, I didn't have a chance to put it in, was just when you take like a firefighter. It's like, is a firefighter a subject matter expert on water or a subject expert on fire?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, how much do they really need to know about water? Which, yes, it's the solution to a fire, potentially. Depends on the kind of fire. How do I know that? Because I understand the problem.
Yeah. Look at that. I love that. Well, you were sitting on that one for a while, eh? The whole 51
Half
minutes.
an hour.
He's like,
Give me a chance.
I've had that cocked and loaded for a while. I love it. That's a great one. That's a great analogy from the analogy guy, and that's a great way to end it. And now you won't be here next week. People are going to skip next week just because, well, if the analogy guy's not there, fuck, what's the point? And I like the little hidden dig too. Yeah, I've been sitting on this for half an hour, but I couldn't get a word in edgewise. Because somebody, not naming names, won't shut up, right? So you did a lot in that one. You said a lot in that one. So, okay, all right. Well, listen, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Great analogy to end off of, and I hope you guys get some value out of this one tonight. Yeah, it's such an interesting process that people go through when they get into this, and we've all made the journey. We all got to go through it. So hopefully this helps somebody that's either thinking about it or at the beginning of their journey. So, all right. Again, Brad, thank you. Dustin, thank you. We'll be back next week. Dustin will be away. But Brad, you'll be here next week, right? Are you here next week? Yeah, next week. Okay,
Yeah.
so it'll be Brad and I here next week, and then Dustin will be back the week after that, I think. So we'll go from there. All right, everybody, thank you so much. Stay safe, stay weaponized. Chat again soon, everybody. Take care.